Hi there, folks. Simon here. This is the 2022 TAC Championship. This match is game three of the four-game match between Abyss and Pluto the Brave. Abyss and Pluto the Brave both split their previous two games, and so if either one of them wins both of these, they will go on to the semifinals. However, if they do split these two games, they'll have to do some complicated tiebreaker stuff, which is not complicated to anyone else except for me. But just like all of these other tournament games, this is played on a 6x6 board. It's played with 15 minutes on the clock, 15-second increment, meaning 15 seconds get added to your clock after every turn. Also, this is played with two komi, meaning that 2 gets added to black's flat count score if the game does not end in a road. And that is basically it for the rules. We do have a little surprise today. I have been doing some commentary with Aliano 2, and then earlier today I did some commentary with ManaT while Aliano 2 played. Now I actually have both ManaT and Aliano 2 in the commentary booth with me today.
And yeah, we're starting with
Ooh, opposite corners, and then
corners.
super quick jumping into that Knight's opening. And Pluto
We're going
keeping
for
his
the
distance,
c4 play.
surprisingly.
Yeah, this is
That's
one of the ways you can play this. This is Willem approved. Don't worry about this. Willem being the um, best AI for attack at the present.
I don't know that I would agree. For Willem
it's
approved in the
essentially
first
located
four
flat.
four moves. I don't know.
It's essentially located flat, but this is very much in the antithesis of the hug opening. All of your black's pieces so far have nothing to do with whites.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah, now
eventually going to have to change.
there's that
yeah,
change.
the theoretical move in this position is e2. This is designed to make a sort of net around the white flats. But I'm not sure about this opening. I don't think I've seen this on the board ever. So this is going to be an interesting, unique game, I suppose.
I'm surprised at Abyss taking so much time on this move. I mean,
You're
well, it is
surprised that
Abyss.
Abyss is... Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if Abyss wasn't any taking time on this move. He goes for f4, which is the classical setup popularized by Willem. Abyss really likes to go for this in the opposite corner knight's opening.
Yeah, I think Abyss, you, and Will, the bot's creator, are the only three people who've really studied Willem stuff, and I think you're the people who currently have it and run it locally. So it makes sense that
Right.
he would know a little bit about Willem's openings and things like that. But I think this makes a lot of sense by itself, disregarding all of the AI things. This makes a lot of sense because you're playing at f4, that's continuing your vertical threat. It's also building towards the horizontal. It's building a buffer against a capture on e4. It's doing a lot
Yeah.
of the things that you want here. The only other move that feels like it's in the same vein would have been e5 to me. And so I think that playing at f4 is good. This is where, because black plays at f5 now to cut off that vertical, this feels like a good position to drop maybe a capstone or your flat at d3. The capstone feels really good just because of the positioning of it. I feel like a capstone at d3 would be really strong, and getting that first capstone out for white, I feel like is often a really, really good idea. It's something that No Hat started doing in the TAC Open in 2021 and had a lot of success with it. And I've seen that that sort of play works really well if you focus on utilizing that early capstone in a good early position like this.
I was actually looking at capstone on e5. This
I was
this
too,
works.
but I do think that D3 is the better place for it. Maybe it's the more traditional or more uh, the safer place. I was also looking at E5 as a spot for it.
I
Yeah.
feel like
And now
e5 capstone makes a little bit of sense, but it feels like it would be too early to drop the capstone there. Whereas dropping it at D3 doesn't feel like it's too early. Because
Would have
the idea is that
it would
black
have been
hasn't
more.
fully committed up in that top right corner yet. And
So I think
so,
Cap
yeah.
E5 would have committed white
Wow.
to that vertical line. It would have been a very aggressive play, and black would have been scrambling to try to defend. But I certainly think they could have defended. So Cap D3 is a safer play, I think.
But we are now seeing a capstone on F3 out of all the places.
Yeah, typically you don't want to place that capstone against the edge. It really limits your mobility for the capstone. But based on where white's moving and what white has built up here, it doesn't seem like a terrible move here. It's
I
actually
don't
working
think
out
so.
for him.
I actually think this is really quite a poor long-term position for the capstone because now you're never going to, like white basically permanently has opposition with his capstone. You will never be able to move the capstone in a way that you get access to the remaining like 66% of the board. So white has kind of free reign now, as long as he deals with the vertical threat forming around on the e file.
I agree with Alion. I think that the the vertical threat from white is going to get very scary, considering that that black capstone cannot help make threats of its own on the left side of the board.
I think that we're
Yeah,
going to
I'm
see
not.
a
I wasn't a
very
fan of that
quick
sequence.
2 E3 plus, and the capstone's going to hit E4, and then that's building towards that horizontal. If white comes up with a capstone, black might switch to the vertical there, place at E6, something like that, and keep going down. But in general, I don't know. I'd say white is in a better position here, but black's not too far out of it. I don't think that he's completely blocked out yet.
I'm going to politely disagree with that evaluation. I think that 2E3. I think that 2E3 plus followed by D3 plus is very much in white's favor. Still,
I
they
think it's still in white's
they
favor
have
for sure.
advantage. They have the advantage in the vertical tempo. Um, they have a diagonal connection to C3, and then black's just scrambling to try and do something in the two rows that they've got available.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think this is enough space for black to do anything anymore. This is going to be very difficult. I'm not even sure how black approaches this position anymore. Like you cannot fix your capstone placement at this point, which is very, I mean, sad.
I mean, would black just place up at E6 or place over at B4? Continue along those
Yeah,
lines?
but I mean, I I kind of think you have to play defense at this point, because you're too late for the vertical. So yeah, I mean E6, but white can just play on D2, and I mean it's black who has to do something here, not white.
Well, now that black has E6, the 2E3 plus move looks a little bit better because if white does bring the capstone up onto D4, black can wall on D3.
But that wall doesn't achieve that much because you can just go around it.
Yeah, but black does have the C4 flat as well to sort of back up the position on D4. So he's going to have to build around that as well, or capture onto that.
Yeah, you can just capture that when you have to. I don't think there's any issue with that.
I don't want to trivialize the position. I do think that there are ways for black to make this more complicated, but I don't necessarily see those as being advantageous for black. It is often the case that the more complex the board, the more the better the drawing chances are for black when they're behind, or even a sneaky Tinue or a sneaky road. So in this
All right.
position, I think that black should be trying to complicate things. I'm just not sure how they do it.
Yeah, and that's basically what I'm thinking as well. It's not really clear to me what the threats that black can even have here.
And I
So
mean, he
Abyss
could be
does
just
go.
complicating the board more and more as we go on because he knows that Abyss is going to take more time.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, Abyss I think has already recognized that he's much better. So I mean, I don't
I
think
know
he's gonna.
you meant to say that Abyss has recognized that he has the better position, but Pluto is a very strong player.
Yeah,
If
no.
someone can find a way into this game, I have faith that Pluto can do it.
And
I mean,
Pluto
yeah.
Pluto did
I
split with Abyss in the previous two games, so he does have the chops to face down Abyss here. I think they
yeah,
both won as white, however.
I do think Pluto's got very good endgame techniques, so he's got at least that going for him. D4 plus.
I
It's
was
not a
also
move
mistaken.
I.
They did not both win as white, they both won as black.
D4 plus is not something I've considered.
And
Um,
that sort of isolates white's capstone unless white makes the zero FCD move of bringing it up, which might even be the right move here. But filling in at d4, I think, feels fine also.
no, I don't think doing the zero FCD is
I would fill in at
quite
D4.
Yeah,
correct.
filling in at d4 is better.
Even in situations, the reason I no longer fear my opponents trying to isolate my capstone in situations like this is that they often are creating severe liabilities in doing so or taking a large opportunity cost. And so filling in at D4 and maybe even eventually self capturing up to create a hard capstone seems to negate the advantage that they might get from isolating the capstone. Uh,
I have a I have a
which
bit
is
of a different idea. What if white plays A3 or B3 here instead? This would make it so that they can go for the horizontal above and below the enemy capstone.
That is true. But that would give black momentum.
Huh? Would it? No. How?
I I don't think you want to let black play on D4,
I don't
but I don't think it's the end of the world
I
if
don't
they
think
do.
black wants to play on D4
Well, if
because
black
then
played
you.
on d4, it would have given white momentum. But since they haven't, white can now play at a3 for the threat,
Yeah.
and black's move to cut the momentum would be the c4 minus, or filling into d4, of course. But the really momentum cutting one would be c4 minus to add a few turns.
Right, but C4 minus, then the capstone can recapture probably. And then just throw onto spread onto C5 and then capture D5, spread onto E5. That's like a lot of flat count.
It is
So
looking pretty good for Abyss right now.
we do see A3 happening.
But there's a lot that black can do to keep this. So it's not gonna. We're not anywhere close to Tinue or.
Oh yeah, no,
We are
no.
close to road threats. Like there's a threat here that black needs to defend. The flat on d4 would be a road. However, I don't think we're close to a win with a road anytime soon because both these players are good enough and experienced enough to spot these threats and figure out ways to stop them. I think what we're going to see is that this position for white is going to build out, and the position for black is also going to build out. They've each got these sort of running lines at the top, and the top right, and then sort of that mid left area. I think white's is going to develop a little bit more over time, and going to have more potential to keep growing and to keep building there. But I mean, black is definitely not out of this yet. They have plenty of opportunities to come back.
Yeah, the game's not close to over by any stretch.
And then there's that c4 minus move. So this is where black is regaining the momentum. So white can play around that flat, or what I kind of like is the d4, potentially building down around below that flat, also potentially capturing onto d5 with d6 and then maybe d4, forcing that capture or dropping a wall, something like that.
I really like just d3 left because it's simple. And I mean, it's just like a simple position afterwards, I think.
I'd be nervous about giving black's capstone more room to get into the game.
Well, it's kind of too late now.
There's an opportunity cost with moving your capstone back into the center when there's nothing to capture to do it. There's no threats on that line. There's no reason for black to be moving their capstone, so they're doing it and losing the ability to play something better. I think the d3 left would have been sort of a move that you can say, this is clearly not wrong, and stop thinking about it.
Yeah, now
That's a good way to think of it.
I'm surprised by e2 by black and by b2 by white. This kind of feels like black could have just gotten a threat on with b5 and had white responding to him for the first time in the game. But maybe he didn't like something about that.
So
So this
here's
is
the
attack
threat
threat.
from white. Yeah, attack threat from white playing at d4.
Do you just play d4 as black here?
I feel like
Or
that's what you do.
do you play f5 minus?
Now, Allion is going to be playing whoever wins this match in the semifinals.
Indeed, I will be.
So who do you want to play against? So who are you rooting for?
It's a I mean, I'm rooting for the best player. I just want to have some good games.
Makes sense.
Um,
I know you have a good track record so far against Abyss and a worse track record against Pluto.
yeah, if I had to like choose the winner of this match, I would choose Abyss simply because I feel more comfortable against him. But um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this could go either way.
I feel
And
like very few
I
people feel more comfortable against Abyss than anyone. Like,
Oh yeah, that's a very unpopular decision, I'm sure. But
playstyles
and I
certainly
mean,
do affect things.
yeah,
ManaT and
and
I
I
were
mean, I
talking
did.
about how his playstyle works well when playing against someone like No Hat Coder, for example, who's also a top player, but ManaT played extremely well against him. Ooh, I like this f5 minus move. It's really interesting. The move that it comes down, cuts off white's threat, and also is threatening to come left onto e4 to make black's threat. That's kind of interesting. I like that. But it's also giving up the anchor point for the horizontal line that black was building.
I really like e1 for white now. This builds towards white's horizontal below the capstone, and prevents black from playing e1 for his own threat.
Absolutely, yeah. I like e1 as well.
Comment on what you were saying about playstyles. There, there are some very strong players who, uh, I guess I'll take the tactful way of saying this. They capture more frequently than others, and the consequence of that is that there are more off the wall moves that are present on the board that you have to be considering. And a lot of my practice is against playing very low to the ground. I try not to capture. I don't give my opponents chances to build stacks as much as they want. And the consequence is I get to an end game. I get to a flat end game. But there are players who capture and then I'll just miss something like a throw from a flat that's got 5 of my own pieces under it that's often La La Land that has nothing to do with any of the road threats, and then suddenly it comes back to bite me. Those are the kinds of things that, for example, Ali will do that catch me off guard. But I know No Hat won't do those kinds of things. He doesn't play that off the wall, and so I feel more comfortable playing that style.
Good to know.
Yeah, take notes because you're gonna crush me anyway. If we even get to play.
If you do get to play,
We're
it
kind
would
of on
be in the
opposite sides of the
finals.
bracket.
Yeah, we've both got a difficult match ahead of us.
I feel like
This is
I must do really well against ManaT because I play all those off the wall moves.
I think our record shows that you do.
Hey, there we go. E1. White is playing that move that we were talking about, building for that horizontal and cutting off black's vertical. And yes, our record shows that I do well against you, but we haven't played in a while, and you've gotten a lot better. So I don't know if that record's gonna stand.
Biz took a lot of time on that. He's down to 6 minutes and 48 seconds now.
Yeah, surprisingly
They've only
slow
played
still.
14 moves.
I guess it's just Abyss style to lose all the time in the opening. Maybe it helps him play better. Maybe he just plays better on instinct in the middle and end game. I don't know.
Well, I have heard him say that he thinks the game is won and lost in the opening, so it does make sense that he would want to spend as much time thinking there.
Well, it is. That's a true statement. I mean, most of the games are already decided by move 15. And this one as well. I mean, this is just a conversion technique, I think.
They're decided
And
by
I
move
mean,
15 if both players from that point on play as expected.
well, I mean, but dealing with chaos is generally not difficult if you have time. Now, Abyss does not have time, but yeah. Okay, so we're seeing D1. Oh, interesting.
Oh. I did not expect the D6 minus here.
Yeah, I expected F2 here. But okay, D6 minus. It's interesting. It's not a threat. It could become one relatively soon.
I mean, is there a reason to not do C5 right?
I mean, you could be making attack threat now.
I don't think you want to make D1 right.
Yeah, you don't want to be making attack threat
to
now.
F4 left.
You got that stack on D5. You want to deal with that now because it can interrupt your threat. I feel
I'm
like
not-
C5 right is the
I'm not
only right call
worried.
here.
I feel like White did that to bait a capture, though.
Yeah, I feel like white baited the C5 right, so I'm wondering what their plan is. Are they going to drop a wall on
I
D4?
presume they're going to drop a wall.
Yeah, the idea is a wall on D4. It gives them room to drop that wall on D4 that they can bring over up onto D5, or if that D5 stack spreads left, they can bring the wall onto E4 to capture up for a +3 move.
I don't know, maybe.
I mean, I guess you put a wall on C5 and then just chase the stack. So they either move the whole stack up to D6, in which case the loss of flat count from the wall doesn't matter, or
Yeah, but then when
you catch one of the prisoners back.
But then when you play a wall on D5, then the D6 stack could spread right, maybe? Although I guess this entire sequence is like
I did not see that coming.
That makes sense
Well,
though, because now it can
F5.
come down onto f4 and recover the captive there, or come left onto e5 and interrupt the threat.
Yeah, I think the idea is to come left.
I like that. I like that move. I'm
I guess I
wondering
just
why
wasn't
you wanted to
expecting
bait
white.
the d5 capture first, though.
I guess I just wasn't expecting white to be playing defensively.
I
So,
mean, White's got all the time in the world, I think.
Abyss is one of those players who has repeatedly said in his games he does not look for Tinue. He plays very much like ManaT, where he wants to win on flats from the beginning. That's his game plan. He will play for a road, and if he sees a Tinue that just jumps out at him, yeah, he'll go for it. But he typically will play for these flat games from the very beginning, similar to ManaT and I think to you, Elion. Like a lot of these top players will go for that, and that's very much Abyss's style. And this wall placement works in that direction for him. Being able to recover that captive, being able to threaten that stack on d5, all of those things work really well for White if he's planning on flat game.
Yeah, that makes
will,
sense.
I will say that I mentioned this in the last game's commentary. You know, eventually White does have to convert the advantage they've gained by forcing their opponent to capture into an actual flat advantage. So
Mm-hmm.
this does work to accomplish that. That's just all it's doing. It's not something that you're getting in addition to a more tempo positive move. I don't know if there necessarily was a better move. It just I wasn't this was not on my radar.
It is also important to note that Abyss now has more time on the clock than Pluto the Brave. And I think that if you're playing against Abyss and he has more time than you, and
Not a good sign.
you're after move 15, that's something to worry about potentially.
We've seen Pluto go down in time versus Abyss in the game he lost as well. So he does seem to be spending a lot of time after getting into poor positions, which, I mean, maybe it would be better spent not getting into those poor positions in the first place, but
But that's not fun. It's more fun to work your way out of a crappy position.
Also, if you knew you were gonna get into a crappy position by playing that, you wouldn't play it in the first place. It's a it's a halting problem. You can't know what you can't know until you're there.
Don't you bring logic into this.
well, technically speaking, tag is simpler than the halting problem. But we're getting a bit.
Yeah, let's not get into computer science for the viewers' sake.
And for mine.
Nah, who cares?
Who cares what Simon thinks? Okay. But we do see the F1 placement down here now after that black F2. I think that's interesting. White's not immediately going for a wall capture anywhere, not recovering the flats on E4 or F4. I think maybe White is waiting for F4 left to happen before bringing the wall left onto E5. That way they can threaten both stacks at once. So
Oh yeah.
I think White wants the two F4 left move to happen so that they can bring that wall over.
I mean, I doubt it's
and they're
going
probably
to
not
happen.
going to do it until that happens.
I doubt that's going to happen, though. I think if anywhere, then a capture is going to occur on E1 and not on F4 or
I'm also
E4.
looking at C1. Because
At
if black does
C1.
something if black does something elsewhere, then white C1 is a I think that's a pretty good attack.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
That's a really good move there.
And it works towards both the immediate tag threat and the future placements on A4, A5, A6, or B4, B5, B6.
Yeah. And then we all ran out of things to say.
I mean, it's hard to come up with things to say when they take this long on turns. We got 3.5 minutes on the clock for Pluto the Brave now.
They're White's not even down to a single stack of reserves. So given the time controls, this should start getting fast and furious pretty quickly. One would hope.
Not only hope, but expect for sure. I can see. I'm just so surprised that Abyss has more time right now. Ooh, and the wall from Black dropping at A2 really does not want that horizontal threat to happen. I think you might just play C1 anyway here.
I think they were looking where I was looking and thinking they didn't have enough to defend it. But rather than make their own meaningless threat that just invites the wall capture, they make a defensive move. And the wall capture happens anyway.
Mm-hmm. And now I really want to throw that wall on C5, but I know that's not the right move to make. It's more fun for me. So I might just drop at C1 here as white. But my gut instinct is to throw that wall because that's just fun.
I don't think that's particularly bad.
I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's as good as you can get.
Yeah.
That's typically where my moves lie when I play. Not bad, but definitely not as good as you could have done.
If you had played at C1, eventually you're going to be looking at to A4, A5, etc. At which point you'll have an opportunity to harangue those the stacks on B5 and C5. So I don't think there's any need to throw the wall there and get into that mess just yet. I think you get there for free eventually. But instead Abyss did D4.
I'm somewhat surprised by Abyss's reluctance to play C1.
And yeah, I'm also surprised because D4 doesn't make nearly as much sense to me as C1 did.
And now it's Black who gets it. Though, yeah, okay, so B1 is still available.
The wall comes over.
I mean, playing C1 wasn't a huge imperative. I think it was still probably the better move, but Black's previous placement of a wall on A2
the capstone came over.
Defense.
We are seeing some weird stuff happening. Hang on. We see D3 left.
Which isn't bad. I just didn't expect it so soon. Or right now, really.
What is that preparing?
I think that's not preparing anything. It's just... Or maybe it's preparing to spread onto C5.
I think, so it might be
that's the only thing I could
up.
see of it. He made that move so fast, I thought surely there was something I was missing.
I think that he just didn't want that stack to get away from his capstone because he was planning on capturing it forever, and then he was like, you know what? I'm going to take it before he moves it away from the cap. Now here,
well, I mean...
I think white would want to play at F5.
Yeah, that would prevent any potential, like, issues
line.
with Black getting back into the game. Though I still don't see that happening. But
okay, yeah, white is in a really good position here.
At this point, I'm not sure how Black makes a threat that's more than just a trivial threat.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't really have much going for him.
To be fair, Black isn't really down on flats yet. So...
Right, but they're lower on... Sorry, they have more reserves, and there's already a allied colored prisoner under the white capstone. In addition, there's 3 other liabilities elsewhere on the board that white can eventually go and target. So,
yeah.
I mean, money is on white at this point.
Yeah, I mean...
As white, you just fill in at E3 here? I mean, that's a threat.
Yeah, you could do that.
I just think you want to get rid of your reserves. That sounds great. Yeah. E3.
E3 gets attack for them. Good stuff. Or you can go for a5 or d5, though. I mean, it's kind of whatever. You're gonna get either of those at some point anyway, so. Okay, we do see the e3.
Oh, the road was missed and a wall was dropped. Black completely missed that road threat. Didn't see it happening.
He was
And
under 3 minutes. He must have been panicking.
yeah, I mean he was down below 3 minutes for sure. So yeah, that was 2.5 minutes on the clock. Of course, you're gonna miss something like that eventually. But yeah, well played to Abyss for coming in with a really strong performance here in Game 3. If Pluto the Brave wants to stay in this and have a shot at the semifinals, he's got to win as white in the very next game. But so far now we've had both players win as black, and then Abyss has now won as white, and we'll see if Pluto can match that performance in Game 4. But that is all for today. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the description below for all things TAC, especially the TAC Discord server, which is where you can find all sorts of resources like strategy guides and people to play with, whether that be right here on playtac.com or also in the Discord server itself playing asynchronously. A bunch of other resources as well that you can tap into. So check that out, and until next time, have a great day and happy tacking.